Auburn low-key had a massive recruiting weekend.
In the world full of podcasts, he's the undisputed heavyweight champion of hot takes, an Auburn sports homer, master of the boog, and message board legend. Get your buttons buttoned and your hats flattened because the Top Button Podcast is about to kick off, and you don't want to miss your courtside seat. Now, here's your host, Charlie Five.
So we're back. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. I'm your host, Kyle Rush, a.k.a. Charlie 5, and we are ready to get after it. Not only did Auburn have a ton of success on the field on Saturday, but, man, the recruiting side of it was bumping. The visitor list was crazy. The atmosphere was crazy, and Auburn made a move with several, and we're going to talk about some key guys on the defensive line today. Action-packed. We're going to jump into that in just a second, but before we do that, let's give a quick shout-out to Rhoback.com. Use coupon code BARN20 to take 20% off your order. Look, you can get your Auburn licensed apparel there, polos, hoodies, pullovers, doesn't matter. They have it. And then if you don't want Auburn licensed apparel, they got a ton of other stuff you can choose from. And you can save big. Take 20% off. Use that coupon code. Show them some love. It's Rhoback.com. Wasn't just winning on the field. There was winning off the field as well, as Auburn hosted just dozens, it seemed like, of recruits and a lot of top targets. A lot of commits were in attendance, which is great. And then you had some guys committed elsewhere. And then you had a couple of uncommitted prospects as well. We're going to talk about three in particular, two from the 2026 class and one from the 2027. And the first one, and actually, you started to see some predictions for possibly a flip coming, particularly from Jay Lee over at On3/Rivals for Corey Wells. Corey Wells is a defensive tackle from Petal, Mississippi. He's committed to Texas. He's the he's in the top 200 in the whole class, number 11 player in Mississippi, just big-time interior defensive lineman, 6'5", 330 pounds. Let me tell you something about Corey. So Corey came back for an official visit. I can't remember if it was in May or June. Regardless, it was one of those, when we're stacking in visits, he came to visit. And Corey is, without a doubt, ask anybody, read any site, Corey's the number one defensive lineman, especially on the interior, on the board, okay? And the last day of his visit, man, they threw the kitchen sink at him. I mean, you had all the coaches with him right before he leaves, feeling really, really good about it. Love his family, love him as a player, love his mindset, everything about him. And it just seemed like everything was lining up, excuse me, for it to be Auburn. And then I think the very following week, maybe he went to visit Texas, and then he committed to Texas. And I think it was a real big shock to the system. I think a lot of folks, that's whenever we started questioning a lot of things about what's going on with recruiting. Like, these are guys that, this is a Mississippi kid. You got Mississippi connections, and you've built all this momentum. You have a great visit, but then, boom, he goes somewhere else. And I think that was when they started – the alarm was sounded a little bit, especially with the fan base. And then, hey, something we're doing is different from what some others are doing. And then I don't want to get into all the August 1st stuff and this, that, and the other. Doesn't matter. I say all that to say this was a kid that they invested a ton in up to that point because he is the priority for this defensive line in this class. Like, he is the guy that if you get him, you feel like you've won on the defensive line. You wish you could get 3 to 4 of him every single year. Just print him in a 3D printer, boom, 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 and take 3 of them every single year. He's phenomenal. So fast forward to this past weekend. They've been working and working and working and chipping away and getting their off the field ducks in a row, if you know what I'm saying. And everything has kind of led up to this weekend. And Auburn just, from what I understand, just hits it out of the park. So momentum has shifted so much back into Auburn's favor that you're seeing predictions roll in. And this just feels like a guy that Auburn's going to do literally whatever it takes to get in the class. Vontrell loves this kid. Okay. So you're talking about another high 4-star kid, a big interior defensive lineman, one that you can build around. Like he would almost be like a carbon copy of Malik Autry. And like, think about those two guys on the defensive line together. They would both be about the same size. Malik's already getting into the game as a true freshman. Corey is cut from that same cloth. So very interested to see. I think Auburn, if they could, I'm not saying this will go fast, but I think Auburn, if they could get it done like this week, they would be ecstatic. It's not one of those, let's play it out and let's see what happens in October, November. This is one they want right now. Like, what do we have to do to get it done? This feels like one of those type guys that they'll do whatever it takes to get it done right now. So definitely going to be interesting to watch how this whole thing plays out, because he's a really good player. He's spectacular, and he's without a doubt the number one on the board. There's a couple other defensive linemen they're going to look to add, especially on the interior. But this is the bell cow. This is the one that you want at the top of the board. One thing Auburn's doing, and this is not – let me back up. Anytime you start to see family members or friends get offers to a top prospect, you kind of just roll your eyes a little bit. You're like, oh, it's just one of those scholarships you're just doing. It's a recruiting scholarship. I'm going to offer this kid so we can get to the target that we want. And it seems like maybe only at Auburn, those never work out. It seems like anytime you offer a kid to get another kid, you end up only getting the kid you offered to get the other kid, if that makes sense. And Auburn has offered Corey's brother, Chris. And so the first time, and Chris is actually committed to South Alabama. So the first time I heard this, I was like, okay, do what you got to do. And then I started to do a little bit more digging on Chris. Got a lot of stuff to talk about Chris here in just a second. Going to take a break and we'll be right back talking about Chris Wells and just in-state recruiting, and then how you balance everything, and then make, how you handle these type situations. We'll be back right after this. So let's talk about Chris Wells for a second. Chris Wells is Corey Wells' brother. He's currently committed to South Alabama. He's listed as a linebacker. Auburn likes him at edge. Okay, he's like 6'3", 220, very athletic. Watched a little bit of film, really liked the potential. Auburn just lost an edge commitment, okay? Hezekiah Harris. And it's not really a sidebar, but this is a section where we're going to talk about context, okay? You really got to be careful as an in-state school with in-state players, okay? And I'm specifically talking about guys like Hezekiah Harris, okay? So what you'll notice is that in-state schools typically offer in-state kids later in the game, because you don't want to offer an in-state kid really early and then maybe he doesn't pan out. Well, it's really hard to retract an offer from an in-state kid because of all the optics that surround that. Relationships, you work really hard with your in-state coaches, things like that. So it's really hard to really put yourself out there with in-state kids until you're 100% sure. It's also hard to take commitments early with in-state kids, okay? because of the fact that the exact same reasons. What if their film's not as good their junior or senior year? Or what if you get some better, I guess, feedback from some better players that maybe from an out-of-state school? You're kind of locked in. So you really can't part ways a lot of times with in-state commits unless you can kind of get into one of those NIL bargaining situations with another school. And then you get to make a decision. Do we want to continue to pony up, so to speak, or is this the perfect chance to kind of get out of this relationship scot-free? Hey, we just couldn't compete. We couldn't compete money-wise. I think that's happened with a lot of the decommitments where it's not so much of Auburn just getting completely beat out, where it's more of, let's make an educated decision here. Can we replace him with a better player, or can we replace the value with maybe a better NIL deal and get the same type of value from on-field production? I say all that to say, Chris Wells, they view every bit. I talked to several people. Chris Wells, they view every bit as good of a player as Hezekiah Harris. Okay. And at least right now, I mean, when you're just being honest, like, you're not going to have to pay what Hezekiah Harris is going to command elsewhere. Okay. And if you're going to get similar production from your evaluations is showing, hey, we're probably going to get similar production out of these two players. Why not say, hey, look, we're not going to get into a bidding war. So you do what you got to do. You got a spot here. We're not taking it away from you, but you do what you got to do. Obviously, that situation played out the way it did. That opens the door for a player like Chris Wells, who it may put Auburn in a double win scenario where you get a really great value from a kid who can develop into a really, really good pass rusher. I mean, he plays stand-up linebacker at 6'3", 220 in his high school, and then he'll roll down and come off the edge. His film's really good. I would go watch it if you have any questions. You get a really good value player and a really good kid that's a part of a really good family, and now you kind of get a 2-for-1 deal. You get Corey as well. You may end up getting Corey as well. I think that's just that would be a really good, in the day and age of salary caps. I mean, it is what it is. It's a salary cap. In the day of salary caps, in the day of like roster management and trying to find the best value for your dollar, I think you have a really good opportunity to make a big splash here with these two guys. And I think Chris helps this situation so much. Chris almost kills 3 birds with 1 stone. He fills your edge role, helps with the salary cap, and then also may help get his brother as well. But I don't think Auburn, I'm trying to emphasize that Auburn is not looking at Chris Wells as a filler, as a means to an end. Auburn likes Chris Wells. Chris Wells is a player. He's just as good of a player. I mean, he's got just as much upside, maybe not as much upside, but he's got a lot of upside, just like his brother. Again, he's committed to South Alabama. Interesting. Auburn obviously plays South Alabama this coming weekend. I'll be curious to see how this thing goes with him down the road, because I think Auburn really likes him. So Auburn may try to pull off a double whammy here, and maybe you get a double announcement. Who knows? But I want to emphasize, this is not a stepping stone to get someone else. They like this kid, and this perfectly fills the void that you lost when you lost Hezekiah Harris. And Auburn doesn't really feel like they're stepping down that much in talent. It just is what it is. So that's really good. And then obviously the last guy we're going to talk about, another guy on the defensive line. This is a blockbuster. Again, this is one of those, what I just talked about, in-state kids you're getting on early. When you get on an in-state kid early, that means you better be prepared to be locked in with them, because it's hard to sometimes break it off if you don't necessarily feel that good about them anymore. But I don't think there's going to be any issues here, because this is the number one player in the state for 2027, Donivan Moore from Hueytown, Alabama. Another guy he's big enough he could play interior or on the outside, and he's athletic enough to play on the outside as well. So 6'4", 280, Donivan Moore from Hueytown, the number one player in the state, the number two defensive lineman, I believe, in the whole country. And he's a 5-star. He's a composite 5-star on 247. He's a player, man. And he's loved Auburn from the beginning. I don't know if Vontrell singled this kid out as soon as he got the promotion, but they've been on him forever. And there was a lot of folks, me included, who thought it wouldn't shock if he pulled the trigger over the weekend, and went ahead and got in the class. Think he's going to push it out a little bit longer, and honestly, I think that's best. Look, I love commitments. They're exciting. They're fun. But, man, early commitments, it just seems, are tougher and tougher and tougher to hold on to. Just look at Auburn's early commitments from Big Cat Weekend last year. None of them are still committed. So if he were to push it back to, a little bit later in the fall, I'm okay with that. I don't think there's anybody really on the same level as Auburn right now with Donivan. Now, that could always change, but I think Auburn's got they're in a really, really good spot for this kid, and that would put a huge shot in the arm for that 2027 class, because you only have one commit right now, and he's visiting other places. But yeah, that'd be big. Auburn this class this year, when you look in state, you're like, man, it felt like we had a lot of momentum in state from last class, where you almost had a clean sweep of the entire state, and you're not quite having as much success in state this year. You only have, I think, 2 commits. No, you only have 1 commit in the top 10 in the state. And Alabama's got 3, and then it seems like everybody else is committed elsewhere. You got 2 commits out of the top. No, you just have 1 commit in the top 10. So you have Jacquez Wilkes is your top-rated commit in the state of Alabama. That's right, because Hezekiah Harris was 7, and he went. You would have had 2, but Hezekiah Harris flipped to Tennessee. So not the end-all, be-all, but if you want to continue to keep having success, I do think it's good to put an emphasis in state, because I just think these kids, there's something innate about them when they have a tie, have some kind of tie, that they play a little bit more. What's the right word? They're just a little bit, it means a little bit more. There's more skin in the game. That's what I'm talking about. That's what I was going for. There's more skin in the game with kids that have some kind of tie to the university, that you don't get the whole, I'm just here to get a paycheck type stuff. Now, that's part of it. But when you can get those kids that have some sort of connection to your school, you feel like there's staying power there. They may not be shopping around as much. They have that, it's like going home to mama type thing. So that's why I think it's big. Even if you don't have some success this year, don't just throw the state of Alabama away. It's still very, very fertile, and as far as a recruiting ground goes, and you still need to have success there. So Looking good in next year's in-state class. Again, Donivan Moore is number 1. You got the commitment from Jalen Scott. You're in the mix for several guys in the top 10. And here's the cool thing. This is what's going to be fun about next year. It really feels like it's like Alabama, Auburn, Alabama, Auburn, Alabama, Auburn. So there's going to be some really fun battles, I think, next year in state. So hopefully Auburn gets the upper hand on going ahead and getting Donovan in the class. But just look, man, winning is so important. Auburn's got to continue to win. You saw that environment on Saturday. If you can replicate that, if Auburn can go 4-1 over this, I said it so many times, if they can go 4-1 through these first 5 games, that Georgia game atmosphere is going to be something that they could make a movie about, I think. I think the recruiting visits would be insane. The crowd would be insane. You have potentially a top 15 Auburn, and obviously going to be, you never know, they could be the number 1 team coming into Jordan-Hare. I mean, it'd be electric. So got to keep winning, keep up the good work on the in-game atmosphere because the recruits love it, and just keep driving it home, man. Keep chipping away. Auburn's right where they want to be. I can't wait to see what happens with Corey Wells. When he eventually, hopefully, flips to Auburn, it's definitely means to celebrate. So, guys, really appreciate it. We hadn't done recruiting stuff in a while. Wanted to give everybody an update. And we're going to have a lot of fun stuff. We'll have Hugh's press conference today. We'll take any big notes from that. You got Tiger Talk tonight. If there's any notes from that, we'll pull those out, and we'll have a lot of fun the rest of the week. So, guys, thanks for listening. We'll be back again soon. It's another episode of the Top Button Podcast. Stay buttoned.
Thanks for listening, and